We got a big one today. So last day of classes for this class, yay! Um, what I want to do today is walk you through an entire walkthrough on how to basically set up your final project. Basically, if you like, and I'll record this one so you can refer back to this. It's also based off of course, all the stuff I've been in over the semester here, but in an effort to try to like streamline the process for getting your final project done, I wanted to like give you a discrete walkthrough of how to like pull this off in like a regular normal amount of time. A couple announcements though. So first off, one of the things that I found was last night, late last night, I was walking through and basically I was running through and building out the entire final project for myself just to make sure that I could do it just first. And I ran into one major snag, and that was that the WebGL thing that I was planning on having you guys submit does not work with Wise, unfortunately. So I'm gonna change the requirements for the final submission, and that you can just basically upload it. You're going to upload a standalone game. This is a bummer because I really wanted you to be able to play this as a WebGL game, but unfortunately, it just Wise does not work with WebGL, but it Fmod does. So should you decide you want to do Fmod, you could do this you could use you could do a WebGL game, post it, and send a link. But I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to like basically, like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and constrain this to a single pipeline workflow pipeline for today, just so that you have a solid backdrop to get this project done. But you have other options to do this. So I'm going to show you a Unity project using Wise, because that's what we spent most of the semester on, and that's where I think most of the industry is using these days. And so I think that's why it's important that we look at that one. But if you wanted to use Fmod or if you wanted to use Unreal, you are welcome to do so. But we just haven't really spent that much time with those two. So I'm gonna leave those up to you if you want to go down that road and experiment with that. So you could do a Unity with Fmod, or you could do Unreal with Wise or Fmod if you wanted to as well. That's up to you. But like I said, I'm gonna walk you through an entire walkthrough step by step, pretty fast, just because this is a review of stuff we've done previously in the semester. But again, it's just a way to set this up so you can actually get this thing going. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna share my computer sound, and let's rock and roll. So what I'm gonna do first. So basically, okay, just as like, let me look at my list here. So I'm just gonna tell you what we're gonna do here. So basically, how we're gonna do just a Wise Unity integrate. Well, I'm gonna build a quick Unity scene. You do a Wise Unity integration, adding banks, adding ambient sounds, adding a loop 3D audio event to a component or to an object in the game. Create triggered events from Unity, and attaching sounds to animations, adding footsteps, and I'm going to look at creating switch states for footsteps for different terrains, exporting standalone games, and then also, if there's time, we'll look at adding other stuff like water and animations and some more sophisticated scene building type stuff. But we'll see how much time we have at the end of that. So what I'm gonna do is let's start up and create a game here real quick. So I was experimenting. I made a bunch of different dummy games last night, and I made a lot of mistakes. Got stuck in a few like loops for a while. But I have to say though, I sat down and well, I beat my head against the wall with this one problem for about 3 hours last night, trying to get the first person sounds working, and I figured it out. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that, so you don't have to deal with that. So that'll shave off like a ton of time. But the rest of it was a little bit of a review from the stuff we've done earlier in the semester. But once you get the hang of it, you're like, oh yeah, I can work with this, and actually, everything kind of came together, and in a way that I was really excited about. So let's do this. Let's create a new project. Let's do Merkle Final Demo. Did it? All right. So let's just create a super fast scene. I experimented around with the terrain builder a little bit more. I think it's okay. I'm not going to spend much time on it. I thought it was neat, and I did probably spend more time than I needed to experiment with it. There's things that I can't get to work, like that he was doing in the video, that are just not working for me. But that's okay. It's not that important for us. You don't even have to use the terrain builder if you don't want to. But I think it does add some pretty good visual interest to the game. So let's do this. So let's just create some terrain actually. So let's start with the terrain, and just it's at 0, 0, 0, which is fine. Um, let's see, like, so basically I'm just going to create some super, super, super basic terrain with this thing. So I go over here. Let's create some height. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Oops, sorry, not paint texture. Raise or lower terrain. So I just want to create a super, super fast like world. Change the size a little bit. Give it some more mountains over here. Maybe a little hill over here, but let's make this kind of peaky over here. Just to give it some visual interest. So it's not just a whole flat world. Good enough. I'm going to keep it flat in the center because that's fine. Cool. All right. So we've got a terrain, and what we want to do is add our first-person camera. So goes to our asset store. Sorry, package manager. So to make it so that we can actually run around on this thing, run around this world, I'm going to go to my assets and use the first person all-in-one. So import that one. I'm gonna like turn off the demo scene. You don't have to do this. Basically, what the cool thing is with Unity is that even if you import like bajillions of things, that when you actually compile your game, it only uses the stuff that's needed to actually work the game. So all the extra crap, like if you have all these demo scenes and demo content and extra material, that doesn't get included in the game. So it's only going to use and compile what it needs. So you can leave all the stuff in there, and it's okay by default to do that. But just in the name of kind of keeping my projects kind of reasonably clean, I'm going to turn off things that I don't really need. I'm going to turn off like extra stuff, import that. Cool. So it's got my first person all-in-one pack here. My scenes, I'm going to call this one, can I rename it while it's open? I wonder if I can do that. I'm just going to call it main for now. Reload, that's fine. Cool. So this is my main scene. Oops. Cool. Where did it? Actually, let's just do this. I'm going to rebuild it. I'm going to create a new scene. Actually, I can just do it here. Create. Let's do it here. File, new scene. Save it. Call it default. Put it right here, but I'll put it in my scenes folder. Cool. And I don't know, I guess I lost my terrain. So let's add my terrain back in there. Just say F. Cool. Let me paint that again. Just create some mountain-y type things. Cool. So I'm gonna throw my first person all-in-one in here. I don't have my chat open right now. If you guys have questions, hit me up here. Where'd my chat window go? There we go. The chat doesn't stay on top in Windows here, so if you try to put that over here. Cool. Make this a peak over here. That's annoying. I don't like that. Make it bigger and softer. Cool. Okay, so let's add my first person all-in-one. Get rid of my main camera. And save this thing. I'm gonna add, so let's just do a quick terrain, just texture thing to this. So what I'm gonna do is add paint textures, add terrain layer, add layer. Oops, I've got to create one. I'm just gonna do a, I need to import some textures. Manager. So I could do, can't remember what it's called. My world texture things. I have to find them again. There's the glass and flower packs, but Oh, so one of the things I was experimenting with, so I was gonna use this Book of the Dead environment. It looked like a really cool environment that they already had pre-built. I was gonna say, oh, just use this because it'd be so much easier just because they already give you a whole world to build out. But turns out that one took like 30 minutes to import and it didn't really work very well for me. So do not do that. I was gonna try and experiment with that one right there, but did not work there. Um, dude, sorry, I'm missing it. What is it called again? Oh wait.
Is that grass and flowers back?
No, it's the ground textures or something like that. I will use that one. I might as well import it. So I'm not really going to use that one for my stuff. Import it. It's fine.
I see it.
Oh,
It's
there it is. Outdoor
outdoor.
texture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I want. Just to keep it really simple, I'm just going to import this one. I should go get rid of. I think there's a demo scene in here. Nope. Import. Let's just call that good. And might as well do the trees. I have a few different trees, but I'll use the trees that he used in that video. All right. Um, what was it called? It was called like do you remember what that one's called? The Not terrain textures pack, but the God, what was it called? Conifers. That's what it was. Conifers. There it is. Let's import that one. Sure. Just to get a basic terrain built really fast. Come on, go faster. I'm not going to go through all the like fancy stuff that he did in that. I'm just going to add some basic trees just so we have like a scene. Because truth is, like when I was experimenting, I just made I didn't do it with terrain. I just did it with a basic 3D surface, and that's fine too. Um, some of this stuff takes for a while. It takes a while.
For your race and when your staple foods is corn.
Hey Malachi, your mic's on.
Polly's.
Okay. All right, let's get back to our scene. Let's get back to our terrain. Let's edit terrain layers, create a layer. Let's just do our ground 6. And I gotta edit my layer here by adding a normal map. That's ground 6. Ground 6. And diffuse is our mask map. Ground 6. I think it's this one. I don't know. Cool. I'm just going to leave it just like this, and then I'm just going to add some trees to this thing. I'm not going to go through and create all the paths, right now at least. Um, and so let's do a tree. Let's edit trees, add a tree. Where's my assets? Conifers. Prefabs. And let's just do medium. Cool. Back to my terrain. Let's mass place trees. Do 10,000 trees. Good enough. And, we could go through and clean these up, like do all the cool lighting stuff that he was talking about, but I'm not really going to worry about that for now. But let's set up a thing in the middle here. Let's paint my trees and let's make a clearing. I'm holding shift right now just to make a clearing. Actually, let's do it over here. Oops. That's where I want to put my character. So I liked what his idea was of adding a cube in that. So let's just add a cube real quick so I have a sense of scale. And right now it's really and hit F to zoom in on it. Let's scale this thing up so that it's too tall. So it's 6 meters, which is the height of a person, which is a great idea to use that. So let's just move this up a little bit. Cool. So this should be at 1. And what I want to do is I want my first person camera, which is now way who knows where the hell this thing is. If you recall, like basically I can copy on this one the transform. I can copy the settings, copy component, go to my first person, paste it so I can move it to right here, paste component values. Now my first person is right there next to it. Push it back just a little bit. So now I'm right there. Let's just make sure that the game works. Cool. So we have an environment. Good enough. Needs a lot of love to make this thing look cool, but that's not the focus. You can spend more time making stuff cool. I'm gonna move on. That's not what we're working on today. So a couple things I'm gonna work on that first person AIO just all in one, just to like kind of tweak things a little bit. So under my camera setup here, I'm gonna turn off the auto crosshair. Don't need that. We can turn off the advanced movement. I don't want to turn on. I want to turn off stable or the stamina. So like basically, if I'm running, it powers down. I don't really want to use that. Cool. So let's play again. Make sure we're good. Cool. Yikes. That lighting looks terrible, but good enough for what we're doing. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna save this one, and I am going to close out unit. My Unity's been crashing a ton lately. I don't know why. Hopefully that I saved, but hopefully that that's okay. I was going to close that anyway. So hopefully that doesn't cause a problem. But now let's go over to Wwise and integrate Wwise into this project. Integrate Wwise into the project. Oops, no. Cancel. Whatever. Let's do integrate Wwise into project. Integrate. So the first thing we want to do is gonna just I'm gonna create some quick assets. I'm not gonna go through. And so what I want to focus on with this is what I'm trying to do is knock out the mechanics of the game building and integration so that we can focus more on the sound design. And the sound design is going to be what you're going to spend a lot more time than what I'm doing right now, because that's what you want to be able to show off. That's part of your portfolio. Your portfolio, like if you were going to show this off to somebody, you want to show number one that you can create cool sounds and cool yeah, cool sound design and cool music. And then the second one is that you can actually integrate this and build this into a game, because those are the things that are going to be like what gets you hired for a project, what they're looking for. Okay, come on. The cool thing is everything we're doing today, there's only one thing of code that you have to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And it's just essentially a copy and paste. And the rest of it, there's no coding through the entire project, which is badass. It makes our life a whole lot easier. So I'm going to open up the final demo here. I'm going to do it in Wwise first before I go over into Unity again. So let's add a couple things here. So I'm going to add some sound effects. So like first thing I want to do is I want to add some ambience. You could do music if you wanted to. Like if you want to show off your music composition skills, you could add some music. You could add music scenes and music triggers. So like if you want to show like create an environment that triggers when you walk into it, it starts music. When you leave it, exits the music. When you walk into another environment, it plays different music. So that's a great way to show off some of your composition skills. Make it like an interactive music player, like that you run around in. But I'm gonna add some files here, and I want to do like an ambience right now. So let's just find. Let's go to my Merkle Video, which has my sound effects libraries. I'm going to use the Sonus ones. So you have this entire library to work with. So I don't know. Let's see if we can find just some sort of quad ambience Crimea in summer. What are these? I don't know. Might be. Oh, that vineyard might actually be good, because those are like quad samples. Maybe, I don't know. Vineyard, meadow at night. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. We're during the day. Ugh, these are ORTF. I don't want quad ones. Let's see if I can just find. Let's find meadow. Forest meadow birds. Yeah, let's do this one. Wood Spring High. I don't know what this is. Let's just open it and see what it is. Yeah, that works. I want to gain it up a little bit because it's a little quiet, but I'll create an event called play, and we'll call it ambience. So let's do this. amb underscore meadow for ambience in the meadow. And we want to add the spring, this one in here. Let's get back over here and set my loop points in a little bit. You can crossfade those, but I'm just going to call it good. How long was that? That's like 35 seconds long. We should probably stream that one. And we want that one to loop. Cool. So let's just, then we got to create a sound bank. So I'm going to go to my sound banks, create a new sound bank. We'll call it, I'm just going to call it main for now. Keep it simple. And what I want to do is I want to add the ambience to the main sound bank. And we're creating for Mac and for Windows right now, so I'll say generate all. Cool. Optimized it. We're looking pretty good. So now we have a sound bank. We have a basic session set up that should be able to link, and we should be able to integrate that into our Unity project. So let's go back over to Unity. And hopefully this doesn't keep crashing on me all day today. Let's open this up. I could have done that from here, which I probably should have done. I like launching from the Wwise launcher just because it makes sure that I have the same version between the two of them, but that's okay. Cool. All right, so now we see that my Wwise picker had shown up. If it doesn't show up here, like because I set mine up here before, you can go under your window and we'll go to Wwise picker right here, and that'll pop it up. But we can see that our Wwise has been added to this. We have this thing called Wwise Global, which added AK initializer in here. So this is basically going to initialize your Wwise project in here. But at this point, we have basically Wwise integrated, but it still needs to actually like link the two things together. So one of the first things that we need to have happen is we need it to, if I go to my, like you can see also I have my Wwise settings here. I'm not gonna, you can go back and look at old videos if you need to touch any of your Wwise settings stuff. Like in here, if you needed to, you could go under your project settings, and there's a Wwise editor here, and you can mess with some of this stuff if you had to mess with a little bit of this, but I don't think we really need to mess with anything right here. So the first thing we want to do is now we have Wwise and Unity talking to one another. But what we want to do is we need to add sound banks right here. So the first thing we need to do is I'm going to create an empty object right now. I'm just going to call this one Wwise banks. And because what we want to do is we want to have it load the sound banks. So we need to add a component. We want basically when the scene loads, like if you recall, we can dynamically load and destroy banks in the game as needed. But for a simple one thing game, oh, what happened? Where I'm in my wrong scene right here. Let's go back to my scenes. Save. No, I don't want to save this one. I don't know why it's giving me an untitled scene there. That's weird. Don't save that one. Cool. So here's my scene, and this is the one I want to open. So that's my default, my main scene. I'm going to delete that one just because I don't want to get confused here. So my Wwise Global, once again, I have my initializer, so that's good. That's good news. So I'm going to create an empty. I'm going to call this one Wwise banks. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Or you could even attach this to like some object in the game. But I'm just going to keep it simple because basically what I would want to do is consolidate all my Wwise stuff together. So in here, I'm going to do AK banks. So what this is going to allow us to do is load a sound bank on start right here. So we have, actually we want this one to be on awake. Let's see. So we want this one to be on Wwise awake and turn off on to start because awake is before start. So we want to do that. Unload on destroy. And oops, showed up over here. That's weird. Here we go. So here's my actually, let's look at my picker just to double check that everything's looking good. So if I look at my Wwise picker right here and I open this up, we can see that I see my sound banks right here, and I see default work unit, and I see my main bank right here. So it is synced up. So if I'm working over in Wwise, and so there's times when you're doing something in Wwise and it doesn't show up quite fast over inside of Unity. Sometimes you have to refresh projects. Sometimes you have to just wait for it to like sync up. Sometimes it's really quick. Sometimes it's a little bit slower. So you can also generate your sound banks from here. So if you need to, you can just hit it from there. I just did it, so I don't really have to worry about it. So I'm gonna hit my sound banks main. Okay. So what that's saying is now that that sound bank, which includes the ambience, is going to get loaded when I start the game. So, but we don't have the ambience actually playing anywhere. We actually have to add that in there right there. So if I wanted to add like some, I'll create another object right here called Wwise ambience. And you can attach this to also, you could just attach this to the character or person or anything that you want to, but I'm just going to add an ambience thing here just to see if I can get this thing to work first. So what I'm going to do, AK ambient, and that's going to allow us to select the sound here. So what we want to do is basically trigger on start, which is what we want to do. We don't need to use any actions or callbacks, but no events selected. Ambient meadow. So what I want to do is I want that to play as soon as the game press play. Now with ambience, I'm not setting up any three-dimensional positioning or anything like that. So this is a two-dimensional thing. So it's just going to be birds, and it's just going to be a kind of a two-dimensional. What I would to make a more sophisticated ambience, what I would do is basically create something where it's going to have a sound bed of just air and wind. That's going to be two-dimensional. But then I might add birds and chirps and crickets and that kind of stuff in 3 dimensions to give it a sense of space. I'm going to add a rigid body because it always wants you to. Save it again, and let's press play and see if it works. Cool. We're working. So some snafus. I mean, there's like just like I mean, there's certainly some hangups there that I went through. Like I went through that pretty quickly there. There can be things that happen like that can mess that up. I'm gonna pull that ambience down a little bit because that's a little hot in terms of gain. But let's pull that back down a few dB. But yeah, so that's basically how we get a basic ambience in there. So let's start adding objects and start adding some sounds to these. So if you wanted to, you could create a much larger environment. But let's add a couple things. So I'm going to create a cube right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a sound source. So for a demo for something like this, you can go and download some cool models, which are fine. Nobody's going to expect you to be like an animator. You're not a game developer. I mean, you are a game developer, but you're not like that's not what you're expecting. It's not what you're trying to show off here, unless that's what you're trying to show off, which is awesome. But I just want to create basically some demo content for these things. So I'm going to move this cube over here, and let's actually. I'm going to create a new folder called materials. I'm going to create some materials for these things. Call it materials. And I'm gonna call this one like let's create a new metal or new material. I'm gonna call this one something like orange metal. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna do it metal orange. So let's make this one orange. Yeah, it's kind of that looks pretty good. Let's make it metal. I want this thing to be like super shiny and super like metallic looking. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So I'm gonna attach this. I'm gonna make this metal orange to this cube. Let's rename it. Let's name this cube. Cube orange. And let's put this a little closer to the ground. I should scale this thing up a little bit. Cool. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a sound source, just so I can use that as a demo. Say like, okay, I want this, and you could actually put some text in there to say it's what the sound source is. I forgot kind of how to do text. Does anybody remember how to do that? Create 3D object, text with Mesh Pro. Text Mesh Pro Essentials. Let's just see if I can add a text to this thing. Where is that? I'm gonna just copy this. I want to move that text over to here. Copy component, text mesh, and let's paste this here. Where is that? So it's not going to let me paste the values, so I have to, that sucks. Let's not scale this, let's move it over to my clearing. Oops. And let's rotate this thing a little bit. Do -90. Scale this thing down a little bit. I guess I could just use the scale tool. See what that looks like real quick. Cool. So if you wanted to create some stuff, like some text in there to show like what this is, you maybe put that above the thing, explaining, like creating in-game instructions, like walk on this to trigger this or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. I've not actually done the text before, but that was actually pretty easy. So I'm pretty cool with that. So all right, so now we've got our ambience playing in the background. It's still really too loud because I haven't regenerated the new sound banks again, but that's okay. I'm not quite there yet. Let's pull this back and up a little bit. And my lighting looks bad, so let's just go over here. I'm going to re-render my lighting. No, I don't know why it's not. My lighting is looking weird right now, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about the game. We can spend more time on the lighting if you wanted to, but I want to get moving here. So what I'm going to do here is I want to add an audio event to this. So let's make this thing like a drone, like some sort of like sci-fi thing. So like when you get close to it, it's some sort of sound emanation tool. So what I want to look for is I want to add another sound in here. Let's add a import. So I just did, oops. Shift I to create. I can create a sound effect and import it. There's a lot of different ways you can import sound effects, but I'm just gonna hit on here. I'm gonna hit Shift I. It's gonna allow me to import. I'm gonna add file. Now I was like, truthfully, what I should be doing is spending more time in my DAW, going through creating killer sound effects that are mine. And I'm like, yes, I want to show off how kick-ass sound designer I am, but I don't have time for that today. So I'm just gonna go through and find something here. Let's find a drone. And we're looking for drones, tonal ambience, mission control. I don't know. Fish tank buzz. This is a really bad way to do, like, looking at these, but like, let's see. These don't give me a whole lot of information. I want to find some sort of sci-fi drone. There we go. Sure. I don't know what this one is, but let's try this thing out. Works for me. We can shave this thing way down, though, because that's way too long for what we need. Okay. And now what we want to do is we want this one because this is a piece that's going to be in a 3D environment. So I actually want this one to have some localization to it. So what I'm going to do is under my positioning here is I want to add this one. So 3D spatialization, I want it to be position. You can do orientation, but we're not really worried about which direction it's facing. This one doesn't have an orientation, so I'm just going to say position. So what that's going to do is it's basically going to add it in 3D. So if I get closer to it, it gets louder, and if I get farther from it, it gets quieter. But right now they attenuate, and also it's going to pan it based off your left and right. But we don't have any attenuation curve set up right now, so we need to set up an attenuation curve. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to call it general attenuation, because I'm going to apply the same attenuation to all objects in the same scene, so they all attenuate in the same way. So I'm going to edit this one, and so we can see that basically if I'm within 100 meters of this thing, I'm going to be able to start hearing it. But I want to shrink this thing way down. I want to do the max is about, let's do 20, just so make it a lot. So you have to get pretty close to it to hear it on this one right here. So, and then I'm going to change the curve on this thing to be, I don't know, like I like something like that. I think those kind of ones that sound a little bit smoother to me. I'm gonna have to tweak that, like that 20 meter thing. So I said general at 10, but you might want to do something like for loud objects and for quiet objects. So if you have something like waterfalls are going to be able to hear from a lot farther away. Whereas like objects, like maybe this might be called general object attenuation or something like that. Don't need to really touch anything else on here and call it good there. But now let's call this one, I'm going to call this one let's call this one, let's call this one cube drone. Because I want to attach this drone to a cube. So it's got a target. I need to add this sci-fi in there. And maybe actually if we want to show off a little bit more of our chops, we could go to our general settings. Let's hear it. Let's pitch it up. Oops, I didn't loop it. If you want to add some effects to it to give it some sort of like delay, some spacey, some phasers, you can add some of your effects in here if you wanted to as well. But I'm going to just call this one cube drone, and I need to add that now to my sound bank right here. So I'm going to add cube drone to my here. Save this thing. I'm going to generate all. Close it, and now if I go over here, my Wwise picker. So we should see my cube drone show up there. Cool. So if I want that sound to come from a cube right here, I can say add component. And I can find it in my list down here if I want to look through my Wwise stuff. It's AK event. So AK event just means I want to play this event. So I'm going to do AK event. You have to hit rigid body because it just needs that. I want to trigger on start. So yeah, as soon as the scene starts, I want this thing to start playing. Even though I might not hear it because I'm not close enough, I want this thing to be playing. So in the event, there's no event currently selected, so I'm going to do cube drone. Say, okay, cool. And I'm not going to touch anything else. That's all I really need to do to this thing. So let's just see if this thing plays. Sweet. Works. Any questions on that? I know I'm kind of blasting through this stuff pretty quick right now. So the idea though is that this is a video that basically I'm going to post this video right when I'm done with this, like as soon as I'm done with class, so that you can fall back on this and follow along. And I would recommend that you follow along with this video like verbatim, just if you need some review on this. Okay. All right, let's move on. So what did I hit there? So basically what I would do if this were to say something like, if basically I could set up a bunch of different sound effects in here, and you could go in and show off that you can create these sound effects, that you basically have the ability to go in and create, like showing that you're making basically making different sound effects coming from these things. You could actually download models if you wanted to as well, but for audio people, we don't care about the cool visuals. I mean, we do care about it a little bit, but not tons and tons. Okay, so let's do this. Let's add another box here. Let's do a box trigger. Let's do this. I'll change the name of this. Cube. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an empty. I'm going to put these inside of this one down here, so I can start organizing and start creating a much cleaner hierarchy. If I wanted to, I could create a new one here called Wwise. Oops, where'd my... No. So now I'm starting to clean this up a little bit. This is my dummy cube. just so I have a sense of scale, where things are. It kind of gives me like a home base, this dummy cube, so I can figure out where I am and how I can get back to it. Like you could also just delete that thing if you wanted to as well. All right, let's do this. Let's create another 3D object. Let's do something like, yeah, let's do just a cube. And I'm gonna make this one a different one. So I want to make this one a trigger. So let's see, is this what I want to do? Yeah, let's do a triggered event. So basically, I want this thing to explode when I pass through this cube. So what I'm going to do is scale this thing up a little. Actually, let's just scale this out a little bit here. And what I want to do is when I touch this cube, I want a sound to happen. In this case, I'm just going to use an explosion. So grab that cube, and I'm going to attach. I'm going to create a different material for this thing. So let's call this one create a material. And I'm going to call this one, let's call this one red, trigger red. So basically what I want this one to do is I want this one to become red. I'm going to turn the alpha way down on this thing so that it's like so it's basically transparent. And I had to experiment with this stuff for a while to find all this. It's not like I know this stuff, by the way. I just spent like 5 minutes poking around going, oh, there it is. I figured it out. So you just have to like kind of experiment with this stuff, but you don't have to do it this way. But I'm gonna do transparent right here, so that if I do this trigger red, so now it's like a transparent cube. So that, because if you don't have this thing on transparent, if you have it on opaque, it just stays opaque. So if I want to do transparent, then my opacity will affect this thing here. So if I want to make this thing like a trigger, so what that means to me, like when I see something that's transparent or translucent, it basically implies that you can walk through it like a ghost. So I think that kind of, and I'd create some text above this thing to explain what this thing does. So, but let's make this one, actually, let's make it a different color. Let's do like a yellow. Yeah, how about purple? Let's rename that one purple. So if I wanted to assign some stuff to that, some events. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to, on this one right here, on this cube, we want it to trigger a sound. So let's go create the sound that I want to have happen when I pass through this thing. So let's go back to here. Let's create a new sound. Shift I. Let's add. I don't know. I could do like an explosion is a pretty fun one. So let's try doing something like that. But let's go sound effects libraries. See if I can, or just some sort of things like a beep. Oh, beeps and buzzer might be kind of cool. No, I want something transient. I don't want something that goes for a long time. I just want something like an explosion or maybe a toilet flush. That'd be kind of funny. There we go. Let's do a toilet flush every time I go in there. Let's give it a listen. Doesn't fit the scene, but it's funny. Way too long. Cool, we can fade that out right here. Call that good. Yep, I'm gonna leave everything the way it is, but now I need to create an event for it. So I'm gonna call this new event, play, I'll call it toilet. Flush. All right, we'll just call it toilet flush. And I want to add this toilet flush to that event. So again, there's always three things that we need to have happen here. We need to have the sound effect, then we need to have it attached to an event, and then we need to put that event into a sound bank. So what I did here is I have the sound effect, I created the event, and I added the toilet flush. I added the sound effect to, or what I wanted to do. I said play in this case. There's other things you can do, but we're keeping it simple. We're gonna say play. So I want the toilet flush to play when this event is called from Unity, and then we need to add that to our sound bank. So F7 to get my sound bank, and I'm going to add toilet flush to there. Generate all. And now we have the toilet flush available to us over in Unity. So now with this one right here in Unity, I want this, every time I walk through this, I want this thing to actually trigger. So what we have to do here is say, on our box collider, we say is trigger. Because we want that to, because if I don't say is trigger, that's a hard object. I can't walk through it. It's going to be a hard surface. By making it as a trigger, it makes it able to be walked through. So I'm going to add a component to this thing. I'm going to add AK trigger. So we have AK trigger collision. So there's AK trigger. There's two different. Well, actually, let's look at this. Let's go back and just look at the pull down menu. So if I look at this, there's Ys, and if we just go scroll through this thing, we don't see it in this list right here. What we're looking for to have happen. What we can do, but we do see it under this scripts, and we see AK. There's two. There's AK collision enter or trigger collision enter, and there's AK trigger enter. What we want is the AK trigger collision enter. That's the one that we're looking for right there. And it's asking us for what the trigger object is. We want it to be us. So when we walk through it, we're the one that triggers it. So the us, we're going to use the first person. So I'm going to use the first person in there. And now what we have to do is we have to do a sound. So basically we have to add a component, an event. And so we can do AK event. And what I wanted to do is on, so instead of trigger on start, I want to do this one on trigger collision enter. So I have to turn off the start right here. And now I have to choose the event that I want. Oops, did I not generate my sound bank? So this is where things get like annoying. Let's generate sound banks. Refresh project. Why is it not showing up for me? So generate all. Not sure why it wasn't like this is where things get kind of annoying because it should be in that main sound bank. Come on. Refresh. Sound bank generation successful. Does anybody see what I'm doing wrong? If I'm doing anything wrong? Looks like it's in there. Toilet flush. On Windows. Let's see. Look at my sound banks. Huh. Sometimes, like, it's just. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save, close my project, and open it back up. I don't know why. Like, for some reason, I'm having problems with this stuff. Cool. Let's open it back up in Unity. See if I can get this thing. Like, I don't know. Like, for some reason, it's hit or miss for me. Things just sometimes show up, sometimes they don't. It's just really annoying. Let's see if it shows up on my picker now. No. Why? What's wrong here? Edge Connect fully loaded. This happens with project. Why is my picker not showing all my events? Looks like it's in there. I'll just try manually selecting everything. Generate selected. Let's see. This is annoying. Trying to think like what I might have missed. All right, let's just create another one. I'm gonna call this one explosion. See if I can recreate my problem here. Add files. Let's do. Cool. It's not explosion. Actually, I should add an explosion. Let's do explosion. Do fireworks, distant, large. Sure, I'm just gonna grab one, a random one here, import this. Let's take a listen to this one. That works. So we want to add that explosion. Actually, it's a little bit too long. Let's tail this thing off. And I want to add that explosion to this event. And I want to add that event now to my sound bank. So F7, let's add explosion here. Save it, generate all. And cool, my explosion went white, which means it's now a part of it. Okay, now it shows up. I don't know why that was so annoying. The toilet flush wasn't in there. So okay, so back to my cube over here. I want to add my toilet flush right here. And we want it to play. So let's see if this works. Why is ID event couldn't be found? Let's see if I don't know, something might have gotten funky there. Clever. Nice. Classic toilet flush, right? So works. I didn't add a 3D, like that one actually, that one doesn't have a 3D associated with it, so I should probably add that. So for my sound effect there, let's go back and I want to add positioning. I want to add 3D positioning to that one with the standard attenuation, general attenuation. Generate sound banks again. Close, go over here and see if it plays. So it's a lot of play testing back and forth and back and forth. So now that should be three-dimensional. Cool. Could add an explosion on that if I wanted to as well. So now I have, basically I have the beginnings of a pretty cool little scene. I can start adding stuff in here. So for your demos, like if you wanted to create, like show off your cool sound design, you could have something that shows how awesome your music is. So when you create basically a ghosted room there, that when you walk into this space, it plays some music. And then you could also have on trigger enter collision exit. So when you exit it, it stops it. So you could have it so it stops the sound when you leave that cube. And so if you want to show off, like basically you could have like 10 different songs set up here and you can walk in and hear different compositions, but you don't want to make sure, you want to make sure that it's like looping all the time. But when you leave that space, you want it to turn off. So you could say on collision exit. So right now we're doing on AK trigger and collision enter script. We could also do exit. So AK trigger collision exit. And you have to do the same thing. So the game object would be when I leave this thing, I want to turn it off. And now when I leave, it'll stop playing that thing. So if I leave that cube, it'll turn it off. So that's kind of a cool way to like kind of throw out some demos, and you can throw some text in there to do that. Now, let's see, what am I on right now? So there's a couple other things that we want to be able to do here. If we want to add sounds to say animations, let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, so here's the heavy one. What I wanted to be able to do was add footsteps to this. And this is what hung me up for probably like 2 days. So I'm going to walk you through this because it was killing me that I couldn't figure this out. So this is the one, like everything I've been doing up to this point and everything except for what I'm talking about right now, you can do without any code. You can do this all with just using components right here and Wwise. And I really recommend you just experiment with this for a while. It'll get so much clearer once you start experimenting with this. If you need to, you can refer back to the Wwise 301 stuff. This is all done in the Wwise 301. There's a couple sections of the Wwise 301 that got like kind of murky and kind of awkward. So, like some of the code stuff, and it just got kind of awkward. So I would, you don't have to use any of that stuff in your demos unless you want to. But I did find that referring back to the Wwise 301 was really useful when looking at this stuff. It gave pretty good context. But what I'm going to do now is I want to be able to add footsteps to my character. So there's 2 ways we can add footsteps to characters. One of them would be to do it through like an animation. So if you do it with an animation, like basically if you have a third person and you want it to be every time the person steps on the ground, you can use an animation and trigger an event every time a person steps on the ground. Now the problem is with this one is that there is no animation associated with it. So even though we have the head bobbing, it's not an actual animation. That's actually a camera script. That's basically they're just moving the camera script. So it's not an actual animation. So if I were to throw in, say, a zombie, or like if you look through in your in your assets, you could that zombie I used last time, or you could find some sort of warrior or a monster that's swinging a sword. You could, if you want to add swooshes, go whoosh, whoosh. You can add that using that an animation in the animation editor. You can just drop an event, a Wwise event in there, saying press like trigger this event every time we do that. Unfortunately, we can't do it with this one, so we have to come up with a little bit different way of going about this. And like I said, I tried like 50 different methods for trying to make this thing work, and I finally got it working at about 2 a.m. last night. So I'm going to walk you through and show you how I did this. So we have this first person all in one, and this is the script that we have right here. I'm going to show you this as slowly and carefully as I can. It's not as difficult as it looks, but this is the one script. You only have to mod the script, and you only have to do this pretty simple. But what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to create a footstep sound. So let's start over here and let's create a quick footstep so that we just have a reference. And then what we can do is we can build complexity by doing switch containers later. But if I just want to do a basic footstep, so I'm going to create an event here called footstep. New event, and I'm going to call it player foot. I'm going to call it player footstep. So basically, that's the event that needs to get called from Unity every time I want a footstep to happen. And I can start with just a basic sound effect, and then I can add switch containers and add surfaces and that kind of stuff later, and randomization and multiple sounds. But for right now, I just want a basic sound effect. So I'm just going to add a sound effect here. So Shift I, and let's just look for add file. And I'm just going to look in my sound effects libraries, and I'm just going to look for foot. Let's just look at foot and see what it comes up with. Football, footsteps, concrete. I don't want concrete. I want grit, creaky, deck. I'm looking for some sort of, I guess dirt would work. Let's do gravel. I don't know what this one is, but let's just grab one of these. So I'll make this more complex later, but for right now, I'm just going to use a basic footstep for like a basic one. Let's go and let's go look at it. So F5, let's go look at my footsteps here. We have a ton of them. So those are kind of running footsteps, but let's just isolate a couple. Let's just do one footstep right now. That's all we need. So I don't remember the zoom shortcut is. Let's grab a single footstep right here. No, do we need to heal? Let's do a quick, tiny little fade at the end. Going to sound terrible at the beginning, but that's okay. We have our thing we call footstep. So we'll call this footstep gravel. And what I should do is I would actually duplicate this like 6 times and grab different ones and create a random container for that. But for right now, I'm just going to call this one footstep. So let's go to footstep here, and it's missing. Let's add a play event, and I want to add this footstep sound right here. So every time I step on there, it's going to do the footstep. I can randomize the pitch. If I was really like in a pinch, I could just go back and randomize the pitch on this one just a little bit. So, well, actually, let's not worry about that for right now. I got to make sure I get through this part. 0, come on. Okay, so now we have a footstep event, and we want to attack. Oh crap! I just shut my Wwise project. Let's see. I didn't generate my sound banks. Dang it! I have to go back in there and do that. Okay, so let's go to F7. Generate all. Cool. And over here, hopefully it shows up soon. Refresh project. I don't know why it just takes, oh, there it is, player footstep. Cool. Okay, so what we want to do over here, so basically we've now recreated a footstep in as our sound effect, and we want to trigger that every time we have a footstep down. Now, if we look at this, and plan B is if you're working with this, if we look down here at the bottom, we have audio sound effects, enable audio sound effects, and we have like wood chips, and you can add different chips in here, like different kind of materials in here. But if you want to do that, you have to basically say what the physics material is. This gets a little more complicated. I'm gonna disregard all of this. All I care about is basically when the person steps down, that it actually triggers that footstep. So instead of using their internal sound engine that they created right here, we want to refer back over to Wwise. So the way I did that is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna edit the script right here. And I spent a long time looking at this thing last night, like combing through this thing for hours, trying to figure out how to pull this off. And I'm excited because I finally figured it out. There's a lot of junk in here, but you don't really need to worry about any of this stuff at all, except for what we look at here. What you're going to look for is this update right here. Let's see, where is it? Dynamic footsteps. So that's the keyword. That's what you're going to be looking for. So you have these like if you just kind of scroll through this thing, you'll see here things called dynamic footsteps. What I want to do is open that up, and we see a bunch of stuff in here. And I basically, if you want to kind of like, if you can understand a little bit of code, you can kind of understand what they're saying here. Basically, what they're saying is like, if the footstep is on the wood, on a physics material of wood, change and play a wood sound from the footstep. And then down here it says audio source play one shot. So basically it says play the sound, play the sound, play the sound, play the sound. Instead of playing the sound that they want us to play right here, we want to add our own code in there. So what you're looking for, and the trick here is anytime it says play one shot, that's what we want to replace with our own sound. And the code here is AK sound engine post event parentheses. I want to say, what did I call it? Player footstep underscore footstep. And I want it to be on this object right here. I want to be playing it from, so you say this game object. So this bit right here, and I'm gonna post this as a tutorial, like so that you have this. I'm gonna basically I'm gonna do a little write up so you can actually do this. So I'm gonna copy this right here, and anytime we see this line, I'm gonna replace it with this. So what this is doing is it's telling it to use use player footstep. That's what it was called, right? Player footstep. Okay, cool. Say player footstep, player footstep, player footstep. You also, if you wanted to, you can also do, they have these things called land and jump sounds. Like they have like a, oh, we don't need that one right there. So one shot jump sound and jump shot land. So if you have if you wanted to like have a jump sound, you could actually go create jump sounds and do that same thing here. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I'm gonna hit save. And I think that's all I have to do. Oh, what is this one right here? Head bob cycle is grounded. Oh, yep. I think I need to add, I'm just going to be safe. And anytime I see play audio one shot, I'm just going to replace it in there. Is grounded. I think that's all I need. I don't know. I've only done this one time, so I have to experiment with it. So go over here. Let's see. It's recompiling everything. Hopefully it doesn't give me too many errors. Cool. It gave me some like warnings, but I think we can work with that. So let's try this out, see if it works. It's not working. Okay. Wwise failed posting event player footstep. Posting it. Why did it not do it? Okay, my code's right, but it's not playing the footstep. So pressing spacebar should work there. Why would that not work? Let's see. Just clear this out and play it again. Called player footstep, right? Player footstep. I don't know why it's not working there. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of debugging, but this is that basically I might have messed something up in there. So yeah, so thanks, Sean. So basically, what we could do there, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna pretend this is working right now because I don't like I have this should be working right here. Let's generate sound banks. Refresh project, generate sound banks. I don't know why it's not seeing that player footstep in there. Let's see. Oh, because I didn't add it to my thing. Generate all. Here we go. Okay, let's try it. Yes, they are very aggressive footsteps. Yeah. Sweet footsteps there, right? So now what I can do, now I have the connection between Wwise and Unity, so I can start creating more complex footsteps, and I can create, so if I want to start doing terrain switches. So if I want to do a terrain switch, for instance, we could add if I want to switch to a different terrain, what I can do is I'm going to add a 3D object. Let's add a cube right in here. And if I want to, if I create something over here in a tile surface, and I could create a tile surface as a demo, and what I'm going to do is scale this thing up a little bit. I have to go pretty quick here. I want to be this as a I want this to be as trigger. Turn off the mesh renderer, and then what I want this to do is add component, AK trigger. AK switch. So AK trigger collision enter. So I want it to be when I enter this thing, I want to trigger this, and what I want it to do is AK switch. So then what I could do is I could add a switch state in here. I don't have any switch states set up over in here, but if I wanted to switch to a different surface type, I can have it switch to that surface type. So and you can go back and review how we did that at the beginning of the semester, doing the different surfaces, and so you can set up all your different box colliders here with different surfaces, and it works pretty well. So there's more sophisticated ways of doing it, but I'm not going to spend any more time on that one right there. But basically, you could go through and create cool surfaces there. Cool. Then the last thing I want to I'm actually going to delete all this because I'm going to delete this object because it's going to make things confusing. Let's just delete that. Save this. Okay. And I didn't do it in here, but if you wanted to start adding like 3D objects, like so the other thing that we could add in this just really, really quick. So if I wanted to start adding cooler like interiors. So right now I've created a whole exterior type of a thing. Come on. Let's do all of my stuff. There's this castle one. I was just doing this one, like this medieval stone keep. I thought this one was pretty neat. So let's import this one. So if I want to start adding if I wanted to do some reverb and to demonstrate that I can add aux sends and adding reverb sounds into stuff, I can start adding in like models of like caves and caverns and So I just looked, on Asset Store, I just did a castle thing. Oh, come on. Let's just add some castle stuff in here. Cool. Let's go back to my scene, project, and assets. So I have this thing, what is it? Stone Keep. I have a thing called prefabs. And if I want to just add like something like, what's an entrance A, entrance B? I don't know. Let's just like look for gravel based. Let's do a tower B. So if I want to start adding towers in there, I can start adding another tower. Let's do a tower A. I want to be that one. Let's raise that one up. I can start making a tower of, they're not lined up right, but if I want to add that as a reverb chamber, then I can add an aux, a system when I walk in there, starts adding reverb. And they have all these, like, they have all sorts of little things. Like I can add walls in there. Wall F. I don't know. Start making your own castle out of all this stuff if you wanted to. But what I want to do now is, because I only have a couple minutes here, is I want to build this game and submit it. So what I'm going to do is under here we can say build settings. And like I said before, what we could do is WebGL, but Wise doesn't work with WebGL. So I'm just going to leave it on PC, Mac, Linux standalone. Target platform can be Mac or Windows. If you're on a Mac, of course, you're going to want to export a Mac. But what I'm going to ask that you do is you're going to send me a Windows. You're going to submit a Windows one because I'm going to do all the demos on here on Windows. But for your project, so this is going to be due by next Wednesday. And next Wednesday, basically, you're going to have to show your game in class. You have to play your game for us and show what you did and how you did it. But I want you to submit a Windows version of this thing. So I'm going to say build. I'm going to save this to the desktop. Select folder. So it's building the thing. Let's see how long it takes. Oh, actually, I might have to. Hopefully this error here doesn't cause us any problems. I should have play tested it real quick just to see if it worked. Let's see how big this game ends up. Oh man, got a lot of stuff in it. And you can go through and adjust the lighting and adjust the colors and all that stuff to match it to kind of how the guy did it in the video. If you want to make it look a lot prettier, we care about sound. We don't care making it the most pretty thing on the planet. We want to give it some sort of visual interest to the thing, but oh man, it's taking forever. Guess I should have done a simpler one for this. Come on. Cool. So now I have this thing called Merkle Final Demo on my desktop right here. So let's get all this stuff out of the way. It's Merkle Final Demo. If I double click on it and play it, something happened there. There we go. So unfortunately, I didn't create a menu, so I have to just Control Delete to get out of this thing. To have to force quit, essentially the thing. Merkle Final Demo and task, but it works. So it's a playable game. Let's see how big the thing is. So really, it's only 624 kilobytes. It seems a little fishy, but what I want to do is playtest this thing. But this is what I want you to submit. It's just an executable right there. So that is a super tiny game. WebGL doesn't work with Wise. If you do it with Fmod, it does. But basically, we have a playable game now, and we can actually go run through and play the game and experience all the things. If you are so inclined, it would be awesome to add in an escape menu, like a user menu. I don't really know how to do that yet, but so I just have to force quit the game. But you can go in and actually create that. So what we at this point now, the other stuff that I wanted to go through that we didn't really have time for would have been stuff like adding water. And you can go through and figure out how to add some water to your scene if you want to do like water footsteps, you want to add snow, you want to add different terrains and demonstrate that. If that's not your jam, if you want to show off your music chops and show off your composition chops, create a game that creates little environments where you walk in and triggers those music. Or if you want to show off your sound design and explosions and triggers and footsteps, there's all these different kinds of things you can add on this. So, yeah, so basically, I mean, in like we were able to create a game from scratch in an hour and 15 minutes with Wise and with using Wise and Fmod. Granted, it sounds like ass and it needs some work, but we actually have a working prototype. So once you get the game up and running, then you can really dig in and start adding some cooler sound effects here. Because what we want to show is how good our sound design skills are and our sound effects are at implementation of this sort of stuff. So with that, because it's 10:46, we need to get out of here. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet at 9:30. Just as a reminder, we're going to meet at 9:30 a.m. next Wednesday. So you have 1 week from today to hammer through this. So what I would recommend is just experiment with your level building a little bit, and then start just attaching some wise objects in there. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to post this video right afterwards. So if you need some review, go for it. But I'll post a little the tutorial for the footsteps code that I changed. Maybe I'll just make a quick a mini video on that. So if you want to add that, you don't have to add the footsteps in there. If that's too confusing, it's just getting in the way and causing too many problems. Just disregard. Don't throw footsteps in there. Just don't even use them. Just use the walking around stuff. And just using triggers and events and sound effects and music. But if you want to go so far and add footsteps in there, it's pretty clever. But just because most games you're gonna be working on, they're gonna have footsteps in there. Cool. All right. Any questions? All right, my friends. Well, let's call it for today. I'm around, so I'm around through next week. So if you run into any snags, build issues, what I find though is like it's really easy to break your game. So what I've done is I've created a number of dummy games. So like if you're trying to import some sort of crazy asset system that you're unsure if it's going to work, I find that some certain assets break your game and you have to start over. So what I would do is I create like a core game that you're actually working on, and then I have this experimental game over here so that if I break something, I don't break my main game because that sucks. And because I don't know how to undo when you import a crazy asset package that breaks your game, that sucks. So, but the good news is by going through this, you'll get the hang of it. It's not too bad, and it's just a few different steps. You just have to think. It's like no, I mean, it's just there's a few steps involved of getting this thing going. So if you run into snags, hit me up and I'm here to help. So, all right, let's call it. I will catch you guys on the flip side, but I will expect to see you guys at 9:30 a.m. next week. But I'm here to help if you have any questions. I will update. I will post this class right away. And if you need to go look back on reviews, I would recommend just following along with what I did by pausing it and then experimenting. Cool.